LGBTQ rights, something that the world has struggled with for years upon years, decades upon decades, and from pizza place to pizza place. Just as Charles Entertainment Cheese, or Chuck E. Cheese once said, "Happy Pride Month from your friends at Chuck E. Cheese." But you would be a fool to think that every single pizza place on the planet is for diversity and rights. We can also see some pizza places don't cater to same-sex weddings. So, what would our favorite horror franchise say about LGBTQ plus rights? Would Freddy Fazbear support it? The first thing we should look at is the timeline of Fazbear's entertainment. The first restaurant opened around 1970, as many fans suggest. This location would be deemed as Fredbear's Family Diner, or to us, FNAF 4. The main thing we should look at here is which character made their debut, and that is Golden Freddy. This introduction to our first Afton haunted animatronic would be the effect of the bite of 83. The next thing we should pay attention to is the next location, or the expansion. This would be deemed Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This ultimately would be the location where the MCI, or Missing Children incident, took place. The reason that it is called the missing and not the killed is because we know about our favorite animal animatronics getting a new purpose to house the spirits of the victims. Now we have the 6 main murders up to this point. Remember, Golden Freddy has 2 spirits inside of him, Cassidy and the crying child. From here we can deduct the bitter truth. I believe that the main cast of Freddy's would not support LGBTQ rights. My reason for believing this is the time period in which the kids are born in. To deduct that they wouldn't like these minorities, I looked at something called nature versus nurture. By nature, these kids wouldn't hate anyone of any type, but by nurture and the world around them, they would learn to hate these minorities. The biggest and most crucial part of this would be religion. See, religion received a huge translation during the 1960s, which added a few biased views into it. One of these would be same-sex relationships, which means if these kids grew up around this time period, they would have been nurtured into hating these minorities. Now that only happens to be the main 5 animatronics: Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Freddy, and Golden Freddy. But there are a few more animatronics to go, so please buckle your seatbelt while we explore how they would view these lifestyles. After the MCI, the original location shuts down. This leads to the second location, which is under the same title, but we're just going to call it Toy Freddy's to make things easier. Really, this doesn't change much. The only new additions are Balloon Boy, the toy animatronics, the puppet, and Mangle. Now, since this location was opened in 1987, we can deduce the same conclusion as last time. These animatronics wouldn't support it. However, there may be one that does. In lore, Mangle doesn't have a gender. They don't go by he or her, so this technically makes them non-binary, going by them and they. Remember though, this is only the animatronic, not the kid that possesses them, so it's safe to say that Mangle would be a 50-50. The next location to open up isn't really a Freddy's location, but a sister one. Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental. This location opened in the late 1990s, and this is the first location where the animatronics actually contain AI, or artificial intelligence. So that means that Circus Baby, Ballora, Funtime Foxy, and Funtime Freddy are the first to have consciousness without being possessed. And another thing to think about, just like Mangle, Funtime Foxy doesn't have he or she pronouns. During the late 1990s, there were a lot of protests that changed the old way of thinking, like the "don't ask, don't tell" movement, which would allow people in same-sex relationships to be in the military. So by this point, there's a good chance AI would have been aware of LGBTQ. In my personal opinion, I don't think any of the animatronics here would have anything against LGBTQ rights, but it is mostly determined by how the AI thinks. Up until this point, a few of you might be wondering why I haven't mentioned the nightmare animatronics. This is because the nightmare animatronics are nightmares. They hold no conscience or spirits, so I don't think they can hold opinions. Although it would be funny to see Nightmare Bonnie at a pride parade. Sadly, that won't be the case. Now onto the next location, Fazbear Frights. This location, unlike the others, was not a pizza place, but a horror attraction. It contained many replicas and props from the old locations before it, but only one real animatronic. Unlike the animatronics before, this wasn't a child. This was a grown man. You would know him as William Afton. Another name is Springtrap. The suit he is locked in would be Spring Bonnie, and it was used originally at the Fredbear's location, or FNAF 4. Throughout the series, he would use it to lure kids to the back rooms, and eventually use it to murder the kids. Now, the main thing we should look at is William Afton's morality. We know he is a terrible person who has done terrible things, but where would he stand? Would he support LGBTQ rights? I believe he is not a man of religion, because no man of religion would do the acts that he's done. However, I don't think this changes much. I think he wouldn't care at all. He would probably just lunge at you no matter what your preference is. After FNAF 3, FNAF 6 takes place, which ultimately ends with William Afton being condemned to hell, or Ultimate Custom Night, where we get a roster of 58 characters. Now, this video is already longer than my other videos, but if we went through all 58, we'd be here for like a decade. So, I'm gonna skip over this. Most of the animatronics in that game are actually reused from the other games anyways. The final location, to my knowledge, is the Pizzaplex. This is a futuristic version of Freddy's, which contains many animatronics, like Monty, Roxanne Wolf, Glamrock Chica, and Glamrock Freddy. There's also a daycare animatronic, but I never really cared about him, he just kinda looked weird to me. This is the second location in the series though, where the animatronics have AI in them, which means even though they aren't possessed, they can still think. With how the animatronics act in this game, as long as you aren't there after hours, I think you'll be fine, no matter what your preference is. The only exception to this is Glamrock Freddy, who's just a little ball of sunshine, even if you are after hours, so I think he'd always support you. Now, after all of this, we can determine that our favorite animatronics are not all homophobic, and that the ones that are were raised to be that way, or taught that hatred. After all, the next generation is what we teach it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.